picture a global financial exchange, but strip away all those old images of humans in suits yelling on a trading floor.
Right. The reality today is a lot less cinematic and, well, a lot more overwhelming.
Exactly. I mean, think of a digital ocean where billions of disparate data points are just crashing together every fraction of a second. Global markets are shifting, surging, and correcting far faster than any human committee could even convene to, you know, pour their first cup of coffee.
Yeah, or pull back and look at a continental energy grid just pulsing with these sudden, wildly fluctuating demands because, say, a massive, unpredicted storm system just rolled in.
And think about complex logistics networks, right? Cargo ships, freight trains, thousands of trucks spanning multiple continents.
And all of them having to reroute simultaneously based on a single bottleneck halfway across the world.
Right, exactly. Or picture cybersecurity teams and government defense agencies staring at screens, completely overwhelmed by a relentless flood of noise. They're trying to make real-time, high-stakes decisions as crises are literally actively unfolding.
It's an impossible situation for a human brain.
It really is. We have built a world that generates information at a completely incomprehensible scale. And right there is the core tension we are unpacking today. The rarest, most valuable resource in the modern economy is no longer information itself.
No, not at all. Information is everywhere now.
The truly scarce resource, the mechanism that determines who thrives and who fails, is the ability to turn that overwhelming flood of information into critical decisions before the events themselves even fully unfold.
Because if you wait for the event to happen, you're already too late.
Welcome to AI Under Review.
Glad to be here for this one.
So if you're listening to this, you probably feel that friction in your own professional life. I mean, the sheer volume of dashboards, reports, and data feeds you're expected to synthesize daily just feels impossible to keep up with.
Oh, absolutely.
And we often internalize that as like a failure of time management. We think, oh, I just need to be more organized.
Which is a complete misdiagnosis, honestly. That feeling of drowning in data, it's a fundamental biological limit of human cognition. We simply were not built to process at the scale we've created.
This episode is based on an article published in Tikshuret News. The author lays out this incredibly compelling argument about why our modern organizations look the way they do.
And more importantly, what is structurally about to happen to them.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start with that biological limit you mentioned. We collect all this data, but why is the conversion from data to decision so painful for us?
Well, it really comes down to the mechanics of human working memory. I mean, cognitive science has long established that our active processing capacity is strictly bottlenecked.
We can only hold so much in our head at once, right?
Right. When we are forced to analyze multiple dynamic variables simultaneously, we just crash. Say you have a sudden spike in material costs, shifting consumer demand, and a supply chain delay.
A pretty normal Tuesday for a lot of companies.
Exactly. But we literally cannot hold all of those in our active memory with equal weight. The human brain cannot run a multivariable simulation in real time.
So what do we do instead?
To survive that cognitive load, we just default to simplifications. We use heuristics, historical rules of thumb, gut feelings, really anything to force a decision through that bottleneck.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if the human brain is a computer with incredibly limited RAM, then our entire concept of a modern organization has to be built around that limit.
That's exactly the thesis.
So all the hierarchies, the middle management, the professional committees, the endless multi-stage approval processes, are you saying that's basically just a giant clinky workaround to string together a bunch of low RAM processors?
That is a perfect way to phrase it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The modern corporate org chart is essentially a distributed computing architecture built out of human brains.
Oh, wow. That is a bleak but fascinating way to look at my last budget meeting.
Right, but historically, institutions were engineered specifically to expand judgment capacity. A CEO cannot process the data of an entire multinational corporation alone.
So they delegate.
Exactly. They delegate to a VP who delegates to directors, who delegate to analysts. We literally invent the Tuesday afternoon status meeting just to distribute the cognitive load of analysis.
And we force data into standardized, simplified reporting formats like slide decks, just so the human brain can digest complex realities quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy exists to compensate for our biological limitations.
That honestly reframes every frustrating 12-person alignment meeting I've ever been in. It's not just corporate bloat, it's an actual biological coping mechanism.
And, for the last century it worked. It was the best system we had. But today, the volume and velocity of data generated every single second vastly exceed the processing power of those traditional human-centric structures.
Because you can't just keep adding middle managers.
No, you can't. Adding more middle managers doesn't solve the problem anymore because the communication overhead of getting all those humans to agree simply cannot match the speed of modern data generation.
It just bogs the system down further.
Right. So the economic center of gravity is aggressively shifting. It's moving away from simply collecting information and toward the ability to process it and extract judgment quickly.
But I have to challenge the novelty of this for a second. When we talk about machines extracting judgment and making fast decisions, haven't we had algorithmic trading on Wall Street for like over a decade?
Oh, definitely. High-frequency trading is well established.
Right. We have complex software that can execute a trade in a microsecond based on market triggers. So what makes an autonomous agent structurally different from a really well-written, highly complex set of hard-coded if this then that rules?
The difference lies in the underlying mechanism. An algorithm, even a highly complex high-frequency trading algorithm, is just executing predefined logic.
It's just following a script.
Yes, it follows a static rule set created by a human. If X happens, execute Y. But an autonomous agent operates on an entirely different architecture. It typically utilizes reinforcement learning and continuous state space modeling.
Okay, so it's not just waiting for a trigger to give a canned response.
Exactly. It manages a sequence of decisions in a dynamic environment. It doesn't just wait for a trigger to execute a predefined answer.
But wait, aren't we just talking about faster chatbots? Like a machine that can summarize a report for you really fast?
No, and that's a really common misconception. Chatbots provide an answer to a single prompt. Autonomous agents represent an entirely new category of organizational power
How so?
because they read incoming information, map connections across disparate data sets, and then calculate probabilities of various outcomes. They build their own scenarios.
Meaning they update their own internal model of the world without a human having to rewrite the code.
Precisely. If an agent takes action A, it observes the result, updates its action model based on the environmental feedback, and then decides on action B.
Oh, wow. So it's iterative.
Very much so. The true value of an agent is its ability to manage a continuous sequence of decisions, autonomously adjusting its strategy as the environment shifts around it.
So, to put it in systemic terms, autonomous agents drastically increase the metabolism of decision-making within an organization.
Metabolism's a great word for it.
Yes. Because they remove the friction of sequential decision-making. I mean, think about the typical workplace you're in right now. You notice a problem, you gather data, you write a proposal.
You wait 3 days for a meeting?
Yeah. You debate it, you revise it, you wait another week to seek budget approval. That friction takes weeks. But an agentic system processes the anomaly, simulates the solutions, and executes the optimal path continuously.
And when you accelerate an organization's metabolism to that degree, the friction fundamentally shifts. The bottleneck is no longer gathering the data.
What does it become?
The bottleneck becomes a requirement for human approval at every single node.
Which creates a logical breaking point, right? If agents are speeding up the metabolism of a company, what happens when we don't need to hire a new person for every new decision that needs to be made? Because you physically cannot hire enough people to oversee every new micro decision anyway.
Right, and this brings us to a massive historical decoupling. For centuries, the scale of decision-making was physically tied to human demographics.
Meaning headcount.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The size of a population dictated the number of decision-making nodes. A bigger government needed more clerks. A larger corporation inherently required more analysts and managers.
You literally needed warm human bodies in seats to scale your operations.
But with the integration of autonomous agents, that fundamental law of demographics is broken.
The number of active decision-making entities is no longer tied to the number of human decision-makers. That is wild.
It is. Consider the logistics networks mentioned in the source material. We aren't talking about human dispatchers looking at a map and calling truck drivers on radios anymore.
Right, it's way beyond that.
We are talking about agentic systems, managing multivariable scenarios across global supply chains. So if a storm closes a major port, an agent doesn't just flag the delay for a human to look at.
It takes action.
It instantly runs thousands of Monte Carlo simulations. It pulls in live API data on fuel costs, alternative port capacities, warehouse availability, and delivery deadlines.
All in the span of seconds.
Yes. It recalculates the probability of success for every single route and executes the optimal rerouting plan across the entire fleet before a human logistics team could even get on a conference call to discuss the weather.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the energy grid example from the article follows that exact same logic.
It really does. It's the same fundamental architecture.
You have agents building dynamic models of future power demand based on like microfluctuations in weather patterns and historical usage. And then they're reallocating grid resources in real time.
And the same applies to financial systems and cybersecurity. You have cybersecurity systems constantly ranking attack vectors and deploying defenses.
The tempo of literally every foundational industry we rely on is accelerating well beyond human observation.
Absolutely.
But if decisions are being generated at this volume, totally independent of human headcount, where is the focus of all this computational power pointing? Like, when are these decisions focused?
That is the crucial question, and it points toward a fundamental shift in our relationship with time itself.
Time. How so?
Well, industrial and digital era management was almost entirely obsessed with the past. I mean, think about it. Reports described what happened yesterday.
Right, balance sheets describe the last quarter.
Exactly. Postmortems analyzed why a project failed last year. Management has historically been the practice of looking backward to understand the present and then reacting.
Okay, so where do autonomous agents fit into that timeline?
They operate in a different temporal space entirely. They consume the past and analyze the present specifically to build a continuous sequence of possible futures.
Wow, so it's a total inversion of how we manage things.
It really is.
It's like, instead of steering a massive ship by constantly looking over your shoulder at the wake behind you, trying to guess your forward trajectory. Wait, a radar analogy doesn't even do this justice.
No, because a radar just shows you what's currently out there in the present.
Right. It's more like running a million digital ghost ships ahead of the real one, sailing them into every possible storm system, reef, and current 10 miles ahead.
I love that analogy.
And then the real ship just casually follows the single path that survived the simulation. The mechanism isn't just looking at the present, it's actively probing the future.
That captures the mechanism perfectly. Management shifts from a reactive posture to a forecasting posture. It is no longer about responding to the storm when the rain hits the deck.
It's about getting ahead of it.
Right. It's about identifying the atmospheric trends, calculating the probabilities, and allocating your resources to navigate around the storm before the physical environment even changes.
Which means prediction becomes the ultimate strategic asset.
Prediction is absolutely the definitive strategic asset of the 21st century.
I mean, in the 19th century, the ultimate strategic asset was capital, right?
Yeah, and in the 20th century, it was manufacturing capability and access to information.
Yeah.
But now, competitive advantage goes to whoever can convert data into a dynamic picture of an emerging future.
It completely devalues the mere possession of data. Everybody has data now.
Exactly. It's about who possesses the agentic systems capable of recognizing a pattern before it becomes an event, or spotting a trend when it's just a weak signal in the noise.
So what does this all mean for how we fundamentally view knowing something? I mean, this breaks our traditional concept of truth.
It really does challenge our deeply held assumptions.
If the core asset of our economy is predicting possibilities rather than analyzing established facts, that feels like a massive philosophical shift. We are so conditioned to want a definitive answer.
We are. And the source material actually elevates this to a fascinating philosophical level. Our entire intellectual tradition is built on the pursuit of certainty.
Like classical philosophy.
Right. Plato asked what can truly be known. Aristotle asked how we can logically explain it. Descartes tried to strip away all assumptions until he found the one undeniable truth.
I think, therefore I am, and all that.
Exactly. As humans, we are deeply uncomfortable with ambiguity. We want solid ground. But autonomous agents do not produce certainty.
What do they produce?
They produce probability spaces.
Probability spaces. Okay, meaning the output isn't a binary true or false?
No, the output is a confidence interval. It's an agent saying, there is a 43% chance of scenario A, a 28% chance of scenario B, and here is the resource allocation that maximizes survival across all probable distributions.
That is a very different way of looking at the world. The central question of our time is no longer what is undeniably true.
Right. The question is, how do we act optimally in a world of inescapable uncertainty?
And agents navigate this by ranking scenarios, allocating attention, and just continuously adjusting course based on new data.
Which means absolute truth makes way for continuous situational assessment. And this leads to one of the most profound takeaways from the article,
Which is?
the autonomous agent is not the successor to the calculator. It is the successor to the strategist.
Oh man, the successor to the strategist, let me process that. A calculator gives you an exact, closed answer to a static math problem.
Right.
But a strategist looks at a chaotic, highly uncertain environment, weighs a dozen conflicting variables, and decides where to commit resources to maximize the odds of a favorable outcome.
Exactly the difference.
Until now, the machine was just the calculator we used to help the human strategize. But now the machine is performing the strategy itself.
We are literally seeing the automation of strategic intent.
It's incredible to trace the trajectory of human agency here. I mean, historically, humans enacted their will through their physical bodies.
Simple labor.
Right. Then we invented mechanical tools like levers, pulleys, steam engines that amplified our physical strength.
And then came the digital revolution.
Yeah, we built information systems, servers, databases, the internet, and that expanded our memory and our ability to communicate. But now we are at this entirely new frontier.
We are.
We are acting through non-human entities capable of representing our goals, analyzing our environment, and executing complex sequences of actions on our behalf. We are scaling human will far beyond the limits of an individual's attention span.
And if we push that thought one step further into the implications of this shift, something truly novel emerges about the human role in the future.
What's left for us if the agents are doing the strategy?
Well, think about it. If autonomous agents take over the mechanics of strategy, if they are the ones constantly managing sequences, mapping probability spaces, and navigating the how of achieving an objective, then the human mind is entirely freed from the burden of logistics.
We shift from being managers of process to being pure architects of intent.
Exactly. Autonomous agents represent a new layer in human consciousness. They are not simply a tool to give humans better answers. They fundamentally extend the time horizon in which human thought, planning, and action can operate.
Meaning the bottleneck won't be processing power or strategic capability anymore?
Not at all. The bottleneck will be human imagination. If an agentic system can seamlessly build and execute the optimal path to almost any future you ask it for, the most difficult and valuable skill of the next era won't be figuring out how to get things done.
It will simply be knowing what is actually worth doing. The true scarcity shifts from computation to desire, allowing you to exist in and shape the future before it even arrives. If you found this conversation useful, make sure to subscribe to AI Under Review.